Hello, this is Crypto BitLaw, here with your blockchain legal brief, and today we're going to discuss how the United States Congress recently proposed a bill that would effectively replicate cash, but also bypass the Fed at the same time. So before we dive in, if you enjoy this content, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We'd really appreciate that. And with that said, let's dive right on in and explore what this bill is all about. Okay, so here we could see Cointelegraph reports US ECASH. It's a bill that proposes digital currency that replicates cash and bypasses the Fed. A United States House bill proposes a Treasury-issued, hardware-secured, and anonymous form of digital cash. They say, the Electronic Currency and Secure Hardware Act, also known as the ECASH Act, introduced today in the United States House of Representatives, could herald a new direction in government-sponsored digital currencies. The legislation calls for the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury to develop and pilot an electronic version of the U.S. dollar that is easy to use for the economically marginalized or technically challenged. It would also maximize consumer protection and data privacy, according to its principal sponsor, Representative Stephen Lynch, chair of the FinTech Task Force in the House Financial Services Committee. Interestingly, eCash, as it's called, would be issued by the U.S. Treasury Department, not the Federal Reserve Board, which means it would technically not be a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, as they're commonly known. Nor would it be built on a blockchain or require the internet to operate. It's designed to, quote, replicate the privacy-respecting features of physical cash, such as coins and notes, to the greatest extent possible. The initiative isn't meant to necessarily preclude a Fed-issued CBDC. However, the pilot program launched by the ECASH Act will complement and advance ongoing efforts undertaken by the Federal Reserve and President Biden to examine potential design and deployment options for a digital dollar, said Lynch, a Democratic representative from Massachusetts, in a statement. Representatives Chuy Garcia, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib are co-sponsors of the bill. The bill envisions the launch of a two-phase eCash pilot program within 90 days of enactment, with the deployment of eCash to the American public expected no later than 48 months after the enactment. The legislation is being proposed and supported by a coalition of progressives, consumer advocates, civil libertarians, and even some crypto true believers, Rohan Gray, assistant professor at Willamette University College of Law, told Cointelegraph. Most Republicans will probably oppose it, but I hope to be pleasantly surprised, he added. What is striking is that the proposal doesn't involve a central bank or digital ledger technology, DLT, which could presage a new path in state-sponsored digital money development. It arguably offers more privacy and anonymity than any other government-sponsored digital currency project to date, calling for an electronic dollar to be used by the general public that is capable of, quote, instantaneous, final, direct, peer-to-peer, offline transactions using secured hardware devices that do not involve or require subsequent or final settlement on or via a common distributed ledger or any other additional approval or validation. There is presently no similar CBDC proposal in the world like this, said Gray, who worked with Congressman Lynch's office in developing this bill. The current CBDC debate on digital money often pits currencies with a centralized digital ledger, like China's digital yuan, against digital currency issued on a distributed, decentralized ledger, or blockchain, which is proposed in nearly all instances, however, is the use of a ledger. That is, quote, transactions get recorded on a common balance sheet somewhere, said Gray, adding, the whole digital currency debate so far has taken place in the realm of account-based money. But with eCash, there would be no ledger, just as no ledger is used for physical cash transactions. This should appeal to privacy advocates and civil libertarians who want to preserve anonymous monetary transactions. Digital ledger technology, even when decentralized, does not allow for complete anonymity. If you don't have a ledger, there's no one who can censor transactions, and no one you have to ask for permission, explained Gray. How would it work? eCash could be exchanged by two individuals tapping their phones together. It might be sent over distances like secured text messages, though this would require phone service, unlike face-to-face. It is intended to be easily used in a retail setting. Gray envisions a future mobile phone app with 3 accounts or options, one for the owner's bank account, the second for a credit card account, and a third ECASH account. But dispensing with all intermediaries like credit card companies, banks, or the government also introduces some risks. Gray added, quote, "You're holding the money on your device. If you lose your device, you lose the money. That's the risk. Just like you lose your physical wallet on the train, you lose all the money inside the wallet." In recent years, the U.S. has been under some growing pressure to develop a central bank digital currency, particularly as China moves closer to a full rollout of its digital yuan. Lynch referenced the challenges in today's statement. Quote, "As digital payment and currency technologies continue to rapidly expand, and with Russia, China, and over 90 countries worldwide already researching and launching some form of central bank digital currency, it is absolutely critical for the U.S. to remain a world leader in the development and regulation of digital currency and other digital assets. As noted above, a Federal Reserve-issued digital dollar could still follow. There's nothing precluding the Fed from issuing a CBDC as well," Gray told Cointelegraph. In fact, that would be expected since the different designs serve different functions, like eCash and checking accounts today. eCash will be subject to U.S. regulations, too. It would be classified and regulated in a manner similar to physical currency, and would therefore be subject to existing anti-money laundering, counterterrorism, know your customer, and financial transaction reporting requirements and regulations, according to the sponsors. Okay, this is one of the buried leads right here. They're talking about anonymity, but let's go over this particular part again, and I'll touch on it a little bit later after we really digest the breadth and depth of this particular clause. eCash will be subject to U.S. regulations. It would be classified and regulated in a manner similar to physical currency and therefore subject to existing AML, counterterrorism, and KYC financial transaction reporting requirements and regulations. I mean, if this whole thing isn't an oxymoron, I just, wow. All right, we'll touch on that again in a little bit. Let's continue and power through this. Still, why would eCash be issued through the Treasury Department, not the Federal Reserve? If you were to say you wanted to create something digital that works like physical currency, it's a token, it's a bearer instrument, there are no accounts, no intermediaries, or it's going to be retail focused, who should issue that? Asked Gray. Treasury is the obvious candidate, in his view. After all, the Treasury already houses the United States Mint, the nation's oldest monetary institution, as well as the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. The Treasury now participates in activities that are similar to electronic cash, like providing prepaid debit cards. In addition, the institution is more capable than the Fed at balancing competing political interests, he added. Quote, "The Federal Reserve consists mostly of macroeconomically trained academics and bankers," said Gray. "They're not civil liberty experts or foreign affairs specialists. The Treasury, by contrast, encompasses agencies like the Office of Foreign Assets Control, which enforces foreign economic sanctions. Treasury has a wider scope and a broader skill set, in his view. Moreover, U.S. central bankers have been saying for some time that critical decisions regarding digital currencies need to be made by elected lawmakers," Gray added. "So now we are taking them at their word." All right, so now that we've kind of got an overview of what this whole proposed eCash bill is all about, let's break down some of the more interesting points and issues related to this bill and this eCash proposal. I guess first and foremost, it seems like there's a host of different agencies kind of vying for control in absence of any bona fide or established legislation on the books to regulate this sort of thing. And it seems to me that perhaps some agencies like the Treasury could possibly be trying to front run the Fed in absence of any sort of bona fide legislation, although they did say there could be a CBDC issued by the Fed, but if this eCash thing is the first player into the game, then it could have a lot of control and carry a lot of weight in terms of how things are regulated going forward, setting a lot of precedent in terms of that. It's also interesting to note that someone like Rashida Tlaib sponsored this thing. I guess that a lot of these progressives that otherwise were somewhat critical of digital assets and cryptocurrencies, for example, when a lot of the digital asset industry executives like Sam Bankman-Fried and Brian Brooks went before Congress for one of the first hearings before the Financial Committee. My take on it is that Representative Tlaib and a whole bunch of the other progressives, Brad Sherman, those people, they were very, how should I say, critical of this space and very apprehensive. And now that it's come to light that it's actually beneficial to be pro-crypto, and you'll have a better chance of getting reelected or elected if you actually support innovation in this space and you're an advocate for this space. Now a lot of these people seem to be changing their tune. So I don't know if their motives are pure. Certainly we can all realize the error of our ways. I think ultimately the more people that are on board, the better. So, I mean, it's good to see some sort of acknowledgement of the importance and the need to innovate in this space. And just as long as you're on board now, I think that's the, we can all have a change of heart. So I think that there's definitely room for that. But it's interesting to see the change of heart kind of taking place in real time over the span of the past few months. Having seen how some of these people acted at some of those earlier hearings, as opposed to here we are introducing an ECASH bill and co-sponsoring an ECASH bill. I just think that it's interesting to see how that played out. Next thing is that the whole farce about this being a privacy-focused token or coin or digital asset, to me, seems like complete and utter BS. Anytime you have a centralized issue or centralized token or digital asset, something that is issued and controlled, created by a central entity, whether it be the government or a division of the government like the Treasury, you can't really trust what they're saying. And you can't touch it with a 10-foot pole if you are being mindful of your privacy. And they even admitted to it here that it would have to be compliant with KYC, AML regulations. Also note that here they envisioned a system where you would have one app and it would be divided into three parts. I think they used a bank account, a credit card account, and an eCash account. And so if you consider all of those different accounts together bundled under one app, you create what's known as a digital fingerprint, where you could identify a user based on the fact that the bank account and the credit card account are KYC'd. So you would have an identity tied to that, coupled with the unique addresses of your phone, make, model, MAC address, all of those different unique identifiers to your phone. And then you're coupling that and juxtaposing that with the eCash account that's held amongst all of the other accounts that are already KYC'd. So you could see why that within itself gives rise to great security concerns as it pertains to anonymity. So that's just a point of note. I just think that these people, I don't really know if they even really considered or if they even have the capacity to envision how to truly create what they're talking about in terms of a technological standpoint, right? I don't even know if what they're talking about is doable based on the current technology paradigms in order to really separate all these different extraction layers and get a truly anonymous token that you couldn't use metadata or a correlation attack or any of these different means of de-anonymizing a transaction as it's tied to your phone. So I don't know. I'd like to see how this develops, and if this thing actually does get some footing, I'd really like to see the white paper that comes out to see how they actually propose to implement this technologically, and to see whether or not it would be open source, to see if you can get an audit on this. I think that that would be crucial in order to have an open source audited code base in order to see what's really going on behind the scenes, so we could actually see if this thing passes the smell test. And then I think last point of note is that they proposed a 48-month timeline So, I mean, that's a fairly long time considering how fast things develop in this space, but it's not really all that shocking considering how slowly things move in government. You've got digital assets and cryptocurrencies, and that whole industry moves at pretty much the speed of light. And then you've got the government that's, this old dinosaur kind of trudging along. And I just think by the time 4 years comes around, there's just going to be so much development in this space. I don't even know if this whole project, this ECASH thing, would still be relevant at that point. But I don't know. Interesting stuff. Sure was interesting to learn and read about this. And certainly we'll follow this and see how it develops and then keep you guys posted to see if this thing gets any sort of traction, if it actually passes the House, if the Senate approves it, and if the president actually signs this into law. So we'll follow this every step of the way and keep you guys informed and see how this shakes out. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this content. Certainly we enjoyed making it for you. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe buttons. We'd really appreciate that so we can continue to grow and bring you these developments as they occur and keep you posted as to how these things are shaking up. So with that said, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.